Vitaly's got $10,000 that Engen paid him not to show up in August. So did Engen kill the feed, or what's going on?
Devin Larratt pulled Vitaly Laletin's Wi-Fi connection with Table 2026. This is a funny clip from the podcast they just did together. Let's take a look because Devin accuses Vitaly of something that I haven't heard before. So this was interesting. This kind of goes back to that period before the Brian Shaw event in August of last year where Vitaly and Devin, they were trying to make that match happen. People were putting money on the table, but it didn't end up happening. Let's listen.
Well, I'm just trying to understand the psychology of why nobody's betting on Vitaly, but Vitaly's got $10,000 that Engen paid him not to show up in August. You'd think he'd throw some of it out there.
So this is the first time me hearing that was something that was happening. 10,000 not to show up. That's crazy if true. They did talk about it a little bit later in this podcast as well, and Vitaly was saying we should talk in person more about the details of why that match didn't end up happening last August, that the offer was not good for him. Things were not lining up for him to accept that match to come to the U.S. last August. It was kind of last minute. So he says, Devin, we can talk in person about the details regarding that. But I thought this was interesting that he said that Engen paid him 10,000, paid Vitaly 10,000 to not show up. That was the first time I was hearing that.
Ну, я не знаю, просто люди на Виталия не ставят, но я знаю то, что у Виталия есть $10,000, которые...
And then right at that time, Vitaly's connection completely cuts out.
Can you hear me?
That's a good time to disappear right there.
Other things that were covered was Devin saying that he believes he's in his strongest shape, and Vitaly was saying there's no pressure for him going into this match. He's just focused on having a good match, basically, while Devin was saying he's motivated for victory more than anything else. He wants the victory. He wants to remain number 2 in the rankings and to potentially have a rematch with Levon at some point in the future, although all that is up in the air depending on Levon's injury and everything. But interesting to see the different dynamic between these two athletes. Now, I want to cover a couple other topics that are relevant right now. One is Alexi Voivoda is going to be competing at the Russian National Championship coming up pretty soon here. He made a quote basically saying, I will not come back. It's not like I'm coming back because I didn't leave. He's basically saying arm wrestling is in his blood and kind of just hyping up, talking about his return to competing for the first time in a little while at the Russian National Championship. So I'm very interested to see what type of condition he is in and how his matches go. I think that's super cool. This guy's an absolute legend in the sport for sure. Another relevant topic here, we got Iron Bibi. This guy is a strongman from Africa. A lot of you, if you follow like the strength world and strongman competitions, you know this guy, one of the strongest shoulders in the world, overhead press, log press, and just an overall super strong human. And he's doing some arm wrestling training, which is pretty cool. Maybe him versus Brian Shaw could be interesting, although I think Brian Shaw at this point has more experience than this guy, which is interesting to say because everyone knows that, you know, a guy like Leonidas has more experience than Brian Shaw, and many others do as well. But for a strongman coming in, this guy is a genetic freak. Cool to see this guy training. You even see Devin in the comments, you should pull Brian Shaw for the number 1 strongman coming in. Well, yeah, Brian already beat Eddie Hall for those two strongmen going at it. I think Brian at this point is the number 1 strongman, former strongman competitor in the sport of arm wrestling, you could say. But cool to see other people coming into the sport as well. Last little topic to cover here, Georgie Svetkov wins the heavyweight championship of Bulgaria, and he recently posted that he is in a good shape and looks like he's probably looking for a match at East versus West, I would assume. So wonder who would be a good opponent. Let me know in the comment section, guys. What did you think about Vitaly and Devin's live stream and some of the other topics here? Let me know and hit like and subscribe.